I used to believe that family was supposed to be your safe place. My name is Mariah Carter. I'm 28 now, but this story started when I was just 21, fresh out of college, idealistic, and stupidly generous. After graduating early with a finance degree and landing a full-time remote job, I decided to move back in with my parents to help them out. My dad had been laid off, and Mom was managing her health issues. Money was tight. The house, our house, was 3 months behind on the mortgage and dangerously close to foreclosure. So I offered a solution. I would cover the mortgage, utilities, food, whatever they needed, until we got back on our feet. They said it was only temporary. They cried when I offered. My mom squeezed my hand at the dinner table and said, "You're saving us, baby." And I believed her. For the next 7 years, I gave them over 70% of my paycheck. I didn't just pay bills. I upgraded their lives. I refinanced the house to lower the rate under my name, bought new appliances, paid off old medical debt, and even funded some surprise home renovations. I lived in the upstairs attic room, barely heated in winter, never once complaining. Whenever I brought up ownership, or a formal agreement, my dad would chuckle and say, "You know this house is yours, honey. We're just the caretakers. Now." I clung to that like gospel. But things started shifting last year. My younger brother Damien moved back in, after dropping out of school for the second time. Unlike me, he was greeted with balloons, grilled steak, and a Welcome Home Champ banner across the garage. Damien didn't pay rent. He never even offered. And slowly I began to notice the subtle change. I was the wallet. He was the golden child. I would come home from meetings to find Damien's friends lounging on the couch, playing music on the Bluetooth speakers I bought. They'd raid the fridge, toss their shoes by the front door, and never so much as acknowledge me. Once, I heard my mom laughing in the kitchen. She works too much to have a life anyway. Let the boys enjoy the house a little. I stood frozen at the hallway. That night, I quietly added up the payments I'd made into a spreadsheet. It totaled $212,972.79, enough to pay off the mortgage entirely, which I finally did last month. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it was the start of my exile. The day after I made the final mortgage payment, I came home from a client retreat, suitcase in hand. It was late, nearly midnight, and my phone had died somewhere on the road. I walked up the front steps, still half smiling from the successful pitch we'd pulled off. But when I put my key in the door, something didn't feel right. It wouldn't turn. I tried again. Harder. It wouldn't budge. Confused, I rang the doorbell. No one answered. I knocked. Once. Twice. Then I pounded. The porch light flicked on. My dad stood behind the glass, arms folded. His face looked unfamiliar, cold, detached. He opened the door just a crack. "Mariah, you weren't supposed to come back until Monday," he said flatly. I blinked. "What do you mean? This is my home." He sighed like I was being difficult. "Look, we've talked. Damien's had a rough year. He's moving into the attic. Your mom and I think it's best if you find your own place now. You're almost 30. It's time." I felt like the floor dropped beneath me. "What are you talking about? I own this house." Dad's eyes narrowed. "Your name isn't on the deed anymore. We transferred it back into our name when you refinanced. It was just for paperwork. Convenience, wanna remember?" I remembered. I remembered the time he called me into the kitchen with a form to sign. "Just a formality," he said. The bank needs this for refi approval. I had trusted him. I signed. Besides, he added, you've lived rent-free for years. I stared at him, my mouth dry. You changed the locks? He didn't even flinch. You'll get your things later. We packed some essentials for now. He handed me a suitcase, not the one I left with. A smaller, older one. My heart splintered. Right there on the front step. I stood under that porch light, shaking, while my own father closed the door in my face. Behind it, I heard Damien laughing. I didn't cry on the ride to Kara's apartment, not in the Uber, not when she opened the door in pajamas, not even when she wrapped her arms around me and said, you can stay as long as you need. But the moment I walked into her guest room and saw the tiny suitcase they'd packed for me, the one I hadn't used since college, my knees buckled. Inside were a few clothes, half of them not mine, a toothbrush still wet from someone else's use, and an envelope marked, "We hope you understand." Inside it was a folded piece of paper, one line written in my mother's shaky script. "You've always been too serious. Don't take this personally." I sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at that sentence, until the sunrise turned the walls a dull orange. I wasn't angry, yet I wasn't even sad. I was hollow. At work the next day, I pretended nothing had happened. I logged into meetings, reviewed portfolios, cracked jokes in Slack chats. No one noticed that I hadn't slept. No one asked why I was working from my phone instead of my usual home office until Kara called me during lunch. "You need to see this," she said. She sent a screenshot. It was my brother's Instagram story. A panoramic view of my attic room, freshly painted, redecorated, and captioned. "Finally got the space I deserve. Time to start the music studio." My bookshelf was gone. The vintage lamp I thrifted in Seattle, gone. My planner board, tossed. In its place, LED strips, a soundboard, and his voice, bragging to his followers about investing in my future. I felt something inside me twitch, a tiny ember of heat, the first flicker of something sharp and waking. That weekend, I quietly drove by the house, parked across the street. It was dusk, a time when the windows glowed and shadows moved like ghosts behind curtains. From my car, I could see through the living room, Damien in a hoodie, eating pizza from a box. My mother laughing on the phone. My father walking through like a king with no guilt in his stride. They were fine, like I never existed. Like my years of sacrifice had been an inconvenience, a favor they tolerated until they didn't need it anymore. Wasn't sure what hurt more, their betrayal or the ease with which they discarded me. Kara was the one who finally said what I couldn't. "Mariah, they didn't just steal your money. They stole your trust. And they're betting you won't fight back." I stayed quiet. "You paid off the house, right?" "Yes." "And the bank documents?" "I have everything. Proof of every payment. Every cent." She leaned forward, her voice low. "Then maybe it's time to stop surviving and start reclaiming what's yours." That night, I went through my cloud drive and email history. I pulled the mortgage statements, the signed refinance forms, the wire transfer receipts. I cross-referenced tax records. I even found a voice memo I forgot I had. From 2 years ago, my dad thanking me after I covered the balloon payment to stop foreclosure. "God, you saved us, honey. This is your house now. You'll never have to worry again." I played that line over and over. A week later, I met with a lawyer. Not one of those big city corporate guys. No. I went to a woman named Renee Ellis, 45, razor sharp, and disillusioned with toxic families after handling her own messy estate battle. She looked through my folder in silence, her red nails tapping against the desk. When she finally looked up, she said, "You have a case." I blinked. "Seriously?" "You made 98% of the payments. The title transfer during refinancing can be challenged, especially if you signed under misleading circumstances. We can file for financial misrepresentation. And if I subpoena bank records, I bet they've been funneling some of your funds into personal spending." My heart raced. "So, what do we do?" Her lips curved into something between sympathy and satisfaction. "We don't knock on their door. We serve them, legally and loudly." Back at Kara's apartment, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. I looked at the woman staring back. Tired, yes, but no longer hollow. There was fire now. Not rage. Not grief. Precision. They wanted to pretend I never existed? Fine. But they would soon learn what it meant to erase the wrong person. The lawsuit was filed on a Tuesday. Renee had told me not to warn them, not to call, text, or hint. "They're the ones who shut the door on you," she said. "Let them feel it swing the other way now." And that's exactly what happened. At 9:14 a.m., a process server knocked on the door of the house I paid for. The same door I once carried. Groceries through. The same door that wouldn't open to my key anymore. My mother opened it in a floral robe. According to the server's report, she blinked at the thick envelope, asked, "Is this a mistake?" and then quietly closed the door. The same envelope went to my father at work, hand-delivered by a young woman with a badge and perfect posture. The same one went to my brother, addressed to Damian Carter, occupant, which I imagined stung more than anything inside. By 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Dad, you can't be serious. You're tearing this family apart." "Mom, I raised you better than this. What happened to gratitude?" "Damien, you're mad you lost a room? Get over yourself." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded all 3 messages to Renee. She texted back, "Perfect. Shows guilt and emotional manipulation. Screenshot and save them." The case moved quickly, faster than I expected, because I had one thing they didn't: receipts, every payment, every refinance detail, every email, invoice, and signed transfer. I had photos of the bathroom remodel they claimed to pay for, with my bank statement showing the debit. I had tax records that proved I'd declared mortgage interest, something you don't do unless the loan is in your name. And I had the cherry on top, a recorded phone call from 2 years ago, an accidental voicemail from my father to a family friend saying, "Once the house is ours again, we'll have more options. Mariah won't need it anyway. She's too busy climbing the corporate ladder." They laughed after that. Renee smiled when I played it. "That's premeditated misrepresentation," she said. But despite the strength of our case, I wasn't just fighting legally, I was fighting emotionally, mentally, because the real ache wasn't in the numbers or the lies. It was in the silences, the absence. The fact that in the week since filing, not one of them had come to see me. Not once had they said, "We're sorry." It was Kara again who kept me grounded. On the night I got the court summons, she walked into the kitchen with a tub of ice cream, 2 spoons, and a notebook. "What's that for?" I asked. "Your blueprint," she said. "For what happens when you win." I stared at her. She continued. You're not going back there, right? So what are you going to build with what you get? It stopped me cold. Because up until that point, I hadn't thought about what came next. I'd been so focused on revenge, on proving I wasn't crazy or disposable, that I forgot the most important part. I wasn't doing this just to punish them. I was doing this to reclaim myself. In the following weeks, their tactics shifted. Mother sent long emails about family history, childhood memories, recipes. My father sent a PDF labeled proposal, suggesting I accept a small financial payout to close the matter quietly. Damien posted vague rants online about greedy siblings and selfish energy vampires, hashtagged with our family is fake. I stayed quiet, because I knew the louder they got, the closer we were to shaking something loose. And 2 weeks before, the court hearing, it happened. Renee called me at 6:30 a.m. They want to settle, she said. My stomach tightened. How much? They're offering $40,000 and your childhood car. In exchange, you drop the case. I exhaled a laugh. The one they totaled in 2018. Yep. I looked out the window at the rising sun, a cool calm settling over me. Tell them no, I said. Even better, Renee replied. Tell them we're countering. The new offer we sent back was simple. Full legal title of the house in my name, a written apology, to be submitted to the court. $25,000 for emotional damages. Damien's immediate removal from the property. I told Renee I didn't care if it went to trial. I just wanted truth, justice, closure, and if that meant sitting across the courtroom from people who once kissed me goodnight and called me their greatest blessing, so be it. The day of the hearing arrived with a storm. Gray skies hung low over the city. Thunder grumbled in the distance, and the rain came down in a slow, steady sheet. Not violent, just relentless. I took it as a sign. A reckoning always begins with weather like this. I wore black, not for mourning, for clarity. Black was the color of control, of knowing exactly what they had done, and not flinching when the truth was finally spoken out loud. Renee met me outside the courthouse, briefcase in hand, calm as always. She gave me a nod. They're inside already, she said. I nodded back. We walked in together. The courtroom wasn't large or grand. It smelled like old paper and industrial cleaning supplies, but everything about it felt sacred, honest. Like this was the one place in the world where lies came to die. My parents sat on the left side, dressed like they were attending a funeral. My mother in pearls, my father in a tie I'd bought him 5 Christmases ago. Damien slouched beside them, earbuds in, hoodie up, ignoring everything except himself. They didn't look at me, and I didn't look at them. Because now, I wasn't their daughter. I was their plaintiff. The judge, a stern woman with graying temples and a voice like sandpaper, reviewed the summary documents for 10 full minutes before speaking. Then she looked up at me. Miss Carter, you claim that the defendants, your parents, used your finances to pay off their home, misrepresented ownership transfers, and unlawfully removed you from the property without due process. Do you have evidence to support these claims? Yes, Your Honor, I said, rising. I do. Renee stepped forward and handed over the file. Inside, bank statements, wire transfers, mortgage documentation in my name, the voicemail photos of renovations, tax filings, and a letter my father wrote me once, thanking me for saving our legacy home. The judge flipped through them. On the third page, she stopped. "Who is Damian Carter?" she asked. My father cleared his throat. "Our son. He lives with us." "He's not on the deed or any financial documents," Renee said. "He also forcibly occupied the plaintiff's room after her unlawful removal." The judge turned back, to me. "Do you wish to pursue damages against Mr. Damian Carter as well?" I looked at him. Finally. He rolled his eyes, still chewing gum. "No," I said. "Just removal." "Very well," the judge replied. The next 45 minutes were a blur of statements, arguments, and objections. My parents claimed it was all miscommunication, that the refinance was temporary, that I offered the money without expecting ownership. They even tried to say they feared for their safety when I knocked late at night, conveniently, omitting the fact that I lived there. Renee dismantled them piece by piece. Then the judge turned to me one last time. "Do you want the house back?" I hesitated. Not because I wasn't sure, but because I finally realized it wasn't just about brick and mortar. It was about everything they thought I didn't deserve. "Yes," I said. "I want the title in my name, and I want them out." The verdict didn't come that day. The judge said she'd issue a ruling within 2 weeks. Until then, a temporary freeze was placed on any transactions or alterations to the house. But by then, the damage was already done. To them. Because walking out of that courtroom, they looked at me not with guilt, but with fear. Not of violence. Not of public shame. They feared what they'd created. A daughter who no longer needed their approval. A woman who'd once saved them, and now refused to let them forget it. 12 days passed after the hearing. Every morning I checked my inbox before I brushed my teeth. Every afternoon, I watched for Renee's name on my phone like it was a lifeline. I slept with legal pads under my pillow, covered in notes I couldn't stop writing, lists of what I would fix, reclaim, protect, rebuild, if I got it back. And then on a gray Thursday at 4:17 p.m., the email came. Subject, court decision, Carter v. Carter body, verdict attached. Call when you've read it. My hands trembled as I clicked the PDF. Decision. Based on presented financial records, witness documentation, and history of ownership transfers, the court finds in favor of Mariah Carter. The property at address redacted shall be transferred back into the sole ownership of Mariah Carter within 15 business days. The defendants are required to vacate the property within 30 calendar days. Additionally, the court orders the defendants to issue a formal written apology acknowledging financial misrepresentation and emotional harm to be submitted to the court and shared with the plaintiff. The plaintiff's request for monetary damages is waived, in lieu of property ownership restoration. I read it 3 times. Then I called Renee. She didn't answer. She just sent 1 line of text. "You did it." Kara popped champagne that night in her apartment like it was New Year's Eve. "Tell me again how you're not a superhero," she shouted over Lizzo blasting from the kitchen speakers. She took the house back with a spreadsheet and a lawyer. "Named Renee." I laughed for the first time in months. Not a dry, polite laugh. A full, from the gut kind that made me double over. Then, for the first time since it all began, I let myself cry. Not because I was sad, because I realized I had survived the worst parts of it. The disbelief, the betrayal, the gaslighting, and come out not just standing, but winning. I gave them every second of those 30 days. I didn't rush it. I didn't show up. I didn't answer their texts, though they got more desperate with each passing week. Mom, we didn't think you'd actually go through with it. What are we supposed to do now? Dad, the house has always been a symbol. You just don't understand family. Damien, you're still bitter. It's pathetic. I said nothing, because no apology crafted by a court order would ever undo the choice they made when they shut me out. On day 31, I drove back. For the first time in over a year, I parked in my own driveway. There was no one there. The lights were off. The porch was empty. No welcome home banner. No one waiting with open arms. Just a manila envelope taped to the door. Inside were the new keys. The apology letter, typed, soulless, signed like a tax form. And a note from Damien on notebook paper, smeared with what I hoped was pizza grease. Congrats. Hope your walls keep you warm. I stood in the doorway for a long time before walking in. The house was cold, bare. Most of the furniture was gone. My favorite lamp was missing. They'd taken the couch, the rug, the ceramic teapot I got Mom for her 50th birthday. They even took the Wi-Fi router. But I didn't care, because the foundation was still there. And this time, it was mine. That night, I slept in the attic again. But this time, the door locked from the inside. I stared up at the ceiling I once painted lavender, under the same slanted walls where I'd taped my vision boards and whispered my dreams into the night. I had a long road ahead. It would take time to fill the rooms again, to repaint the kitchen, to clean the remnants of people who pretended they loved me, until love cost them comfort. But as I closed my eyes, I knew this. They changed. The locks on me once. I would never let them again. The first 2 weeks in the house were quiet. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just still. Like the house was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do now that it was mine again. I lived mostly in the attic, sleeping on an air mattress and eating takeout cross-legged on the floor. I had no couch, no table, no internet yet. But what I did have was silence, the kind that doesn't come from absence, but from choice. Each morning, I brewed coffee on the stovetop and stood barefoot in the living room, looking at the space, where my parents once sat watching cable, where Damien once strutted through like a king. The silence became my rehearsal room, for clarity, for planning, for the next chapter. By week 3, I started putting things in place. I hired a locksmith, a woman, young and brisk and efficient. You'd be surprised how many women change their locks after family drama, she said with a small smirk. You doing okay? Better than ever, I said. Then came a new Wi-Fi provider, a painter, a handyman named George who helped me patch the holes in the walls and smiled when I tipped too much. Piece by piece, the house was becoming unrecognizable. Not to me, but to them. I painted the kitchen lemon cream, replaced the dusty carpet in the living room with warm hardwood, got rid of everything they left behind, even the faint smell of Damien's cheap cologne lingering on the staircase. And when I found the family portraits in the attic storage bin, I carefully removed the photos and burned them in a fireproof bowl, not in anger, in finality. One afternoon, I got a message on Facebook. It was from a name I hadn't seen in years, Aunt Leona, my dad's estranged sister. Hey, sweetheart. I just heard what happened. You're stronger than all of them combined. Your grandmother would be proud. She'd been the black sheep of the family. Once, the one who spoke her mind, refused to play peacemaker. Now, I understood her in a way I never had before. We talked for hours. She told me stories I'd never heard. About how my dad had always envied his own parents' attention, how he resented anyone, even his own children, who earned praise he didn't receive. He didn't see you as a daughter, Mariah. He saw you as a replacement, she said, and he punished you for it the moment you started standing taller than he ever could. It clicked then. They hadn't kicked me out because I was ungrateful. They kicked me out because I reminded them what they failed to be. By month 2, the transformation was nearly complete. Kara helped me hang sheer white curtains and minimalist light fixtures she found on sale. She joked that the house looked Pinterest, divorced and spiritually reborn. I started working from the new home office downstairs, no longer the attic, and turned the attic into a personal reading loft. The same space Damien wanted for his music studio now held my books, my peace, and my voice. And then something happened I didn't expect. An invitation arrived in the mail. A cream-colored envelope, thick cardstock, gold trim. It was from Damien. You are invited to the launch party for Mariah Carter Studios, hosted at the Glass Hall Lounge. Friday, 7 p.m. Formal attire required. I laughed out loud. The audacity wasn't surprising anymore. It was just pathetic. But what was surprising was the second card inside. A VIP guest pass, handwritten. If you can forgive and support, show up. Family's supposed to come back around eventually. I held that card between my fingers for a long time. And then I made a decision. I was going. Not because I wanted to support him, but because some victories are better witnessed in person. The night of Damien's launch party, I arrived alone. No +1, no loud entrance. Just quiet steps, and a black velvet dress that told the room, I'm not here to blend in. The Glass Hall Lounge was packed with people Damien barely knew but desperately wanted to impress. Influencers, wannabe producers, local musicians in sunglasses, indoors. The air reeked of ambition and cologne. He stood near the bar like a movie star, all fake humility and manic charm, shaking hands and grinning wide. He didn't see me at first, but his friend did, and whispered something, and then I watched as his smile faltered. He blinked. Once, twice, then covered it with a tight laugh. I walked up to the bar and ordered a single glass of Prosecco. He approached seconds later, flanked by 2 of his guys, trying to look casual. Didn't think you'd come, he said. I sipped. Clearly. He paused. So, are we good now? Water under the bridge? I looked him dead in the eye. You stole my space, my trust, my time. And then you tried to paint me as the bitter one. He exhaled a weak chuckle. You got the house. That's a win, right? No, I said. The win is that you're here, begging for relevance in a rented room, while I'm home. I smiled, slow and quiet. And I didn't need a spotlight to get there. His mouth opened to reply. But I'd already turned. I left him standing in that room full of strangers, where nobody clapped, and no one cared about the man behind the brand. I got home that night, just before midnight. The porch light welcomed me, my light. My key turned smoothly in the lock, my lock, and in the silence I could hear it. Not applause, not noise, just peace, the kind you earn. Epilogue. 6 months later, the house is fully mine, not just legally, but emotionally. I've turned the guest room into a creative space, started a podcast about financial abuse and recovery. Kara helps produce it. We get emails from women and men around the world. Some cry, some share legal questions. Some just say, "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." And every so often I get calls from old family friends. They say you turned your back on them, one told me. I laughed gently. I didn't turn my back. I just stopped bending over.